for IRS Form 8948, Preparer Explanation for Not Filing Electronically. This form is used only by specified tax return preparers to explain why a particular tax return is being filed on paper. There are a couple of nuances to this that we should discuss before we get into the form itself. So first of all, defining a specified tax return preparer. This is an actual term prescribed by the IRS, and a specified tax return preparer is a tax return preparer as identified in Internal Revenue Code section 7701 and Treasury Regulations section 301.7701-15, who is a preparer of covered returns and who reasonably expects to file 11 or more covered returns during a calendar year. So a couple of wrinkles in this. So if the preparer is a member of a tax return preparation firm, then the firm's members in the aggregate can expect to file 11 or more covered returns during a calendar year. A covered return includes any return, a tax return on individuals, estates, or trusts. And there are some covered returns that cannot be filed electronically. And in these cases, the IRS has instructed taxpayers not to file those covered returns electronically. Certain covered returns cannot be e-filed if they have attached forms, schedules, or documentation that cannot be sent to the IRS separately using Form 8453 as a transmittal document. So in any of these situations, the tax preparer does not need to complete and submit Form 8948. If the form, schedules, and documents can be sent to the IRS separately using a transmittal document, then the rest of the tax return must be e-filed. So, in other words, there are certain exceptions to when you have to file 8948, but generally, if you're a specified tax return preparer, either yourself or your firm expects to complete 11 or more tax returns that are supposed to be filed electronically during the calendar year, and you have to submit a tax return by paper, then you would use 8948 to explain why you did not do so. There's one more additional point to address. There may be specified tax return preparers who's previously submitted IRS Form 8944, Preparer E-File Hardship Waiver Request. If you did this and you received an approval letter from the IRS, then you should plan to file Form 8948 with the tax return or tax returns being sent to the IRS. So this is a form that must accompany a specific tax return that otherwise should be filed electronically. And if you have to prepare multiple returns, then you would file a unique Form 8948 for each return that you're filing via paper. So we'll cover the instructions as outlined. Obviously, the IRS, as well as most of the federal government, is trying to use as much electronic submission and processing as possible to eliminate manual errors, and some of the benefits include faster refunds for taxpayers, more accurate returns, more secure transmissions, easier to file. There are options for e-payment, and you get acknowledgement of the receipt of your tax return very quickly. So at the top of the form, you would enter the taxpayer's name as shown on the tax return, the year of the tax return, the taxpayer's identification number, This could be a social security number or an employer identification number. If you're preparing this on behalf of a couple filing a joint tax return, then you would list the taxpayer information that appears first on the tax return. And then obviously below that, the tax return preparer's name as well as the PTIN. For people not aware what a PTIN is, that is a unique number that belongs to tax return preparers. So this form is pretty straightforward. It is just one page, and the only thing that you're required to do is check exactly one of these boxes marked 1 through 6. If required, then you would outline a written explanation as appropriate. So box 1, if the taxpayer chooses to file a tax return on paper, select 1. That's all you need to do. You would check this box if the taxpayer has chosen to file on paper, the return is prepared by you, but will be submitted by mail by the taxpayer. There is additional guidance for information on documenting a taxpayer's choice to file on paper. You may find that either in Revenue Procedure 211 25, that's 2011 -25, 2011-17, or Internal Revenue Bulletin 725. In line 2, you would check this box if you received a waiver from the requirement to file electronically. So if you filed IRS Form 8944 due to a hardship and then you received a waiver, you would annotate the waiver reference number followed by the letter approval, the approval letter date. 3, if you are a member of a recognized religious group that is conscientiously opposed to filing electronically, then you can check that box. The requirement specifically is that you be a member of a recognized religious group that is conscientiously opposed to its members using electronic technology, which includes the filing of income tax returns electronically, and that this group has continuously existed since December 31st, 1950. In line 4, you would check this box if the tax return was previously rejected by IRS e-file and you could not resolve the reject condition. So in this case, you would enter the reject code and the number of attempts that you made to resolve this. Line 5, you would check line 5 if your e-file software package does not support a particular form or a schedule that was attached to this tax return. Do not check this box if you cannot e-file, if the reason you cannot e-file is that the IRS does not electronically accept a form or schedule that is attached to this tax return. Only if your e-file software package does not support the form or schedule in question. For line 6, you have 3 choices. So check the appropriate box that applies and then provide additional information if requested. So in 6A, if you're a tax return preparer who is ineligible to electronically file because the IRS e-file system does not accept foreign preparers without social security numbers who live and work abroad, you would check line 6A. Specifically, to qualify for being able to check box 6A, you must have applied for a PTIN and submitted IRS Form 8946 PTIN supplemental application for foreign persons without a social security number. So that is IRS Form 8946 must have been filed, but you do not need to attach either the PTIN application or Form 8946 to the return. You simply check that box. and provide a written explanation. For 6B, if you are a tax return preparer who is ineligible to participate in IRS e-file, you would check this box. Specifically, if you are ineligible due to an IRS sanction. So to qualify for this exception, you must have received a letter from the IRS enforcing the sanction, and the sanction must be in effect for some or all of the calendar year for which the return is being filed. Do not attach the sanction letter to the tax return. You may check this box until the time that the sanction period ends or the IRS accepts you back into the e-file program, whichever occurs first. And if you have filed a pending application for the e-file program at the same time that the sanction period ends, you can check this box until the IRS makes a final decision about your application. And then finally, line 6C is kind of an other catch-all reason. And you would check this box if you're not able to e-file because of other verifiable and documented technological difficulties experienced that are not described elsewhere in the form. So you would use this narrative to provide a written explanation on why your reason is not otherwise covered by one of these other boxes and what technological issues you're encountering when it comes to filing this particular tax return. So that is all we have for this form. The latest version of this form is on the IRS website. It also contains on the back of this all of the instructions, purposes, and everything else that we just discussed in this video. If you'd like, we've written a full-length article on this topic, walking you through IRS Form 8948. Simply go to our website, teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS Form 8948 into the search bar, and you should see the article. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. You can simply find our opt-in form on any of our articles on Teach Me Personal Finance. If you like our YouTube video tutorials, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please post them in the comment section or send me an email. Thank you very much and have a great day.